Now, for more on plastic pollution, I'm joined by Valeria Merino from Earth Day Network. She's also the Vice President of Global Earth Day. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us.
So let's start with a look at the economic consequences of having these plastics and these plastic particles in our ecosystem.
I think one of the problems is that this is, of course, is going to affect the fishing industry, because sooner rather than later, people are going to start thinking, what am I eating? Is this has plastic or doesn't have plastic? But I think part of the program that we're just watching doesn't talk too much about microplastics, and I think that's a particularly damaging byproduct of all this plastic pollution. I don't think we can clean that out of the ocean.
So explain to us then the complications that come with microplastics.
Well, microplastics are so tiny, 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 you cannot even see them in most of the ports, and they are absorbed by fish when they eat it or water through the water, and they stay in their skin, and we don't know exactly in their flesh, and we don't know exactly what's going to do to us when we eat it. So if you can say that if animals get confused with plastic and they eat plastic because they think it's food, when we eat that also in our gut, something is going to be confused about, is this really food or not? And it's going to create some health consequences that we don't know exactly what they are. So it's not a very fun thing to think about. The second thing is now there is evidence that microplastics exist in bottled water and tap water in a lot of the bigger cities in the world. When we wash our clothing, there is millions and millions of fibers that go into the water. So we really need to stop the flow of plastic. It's not just about cleaning the plastic, It's about making sure that the plastic does not get into the water systems and into the ocean.
Now, let's look at some of the measures that countries are taking. We saw that China has tightened its domestic environmental regulations and also is now refusing to take in plastic waste from other countries. So given what's happening now, how likely is this to be a tipping point for more countries to be more proactive about this?
Well, the thing is that China is just switching the basic raw material that they are going to use for their plastic production. The fact that they are rejecting the plastic that they used to buy from others that was recycled and was low quality doesn't mean that they are going to stop the production of plastic. In fact, the US now is going to start selling them raw material that is new. So what is happening in all this equation is that right now we have more or less 9% of the plastic being recycled, but 2% of the plastic is not going to be recycled anymore. It's going to end up in landfills, where China is going to buy new plastic from the US to keep producing whatever plastic they're producing. And what is also being analyzed is that the US is going to become the largest producer of plastic right now, because it's cheaper to produce plastic in the US than anywhere else because of the cost of oil and fracking.
Right.
And the US is planning to increase the sale of plastic to the Asian countries until 2020 by 5-fold. We cannot even manage the waste that we have today. How we're going to manage all of this?
So then to that point then, why are we not seeing people take more action on this? Given some of the consequences that we know, what is it going to take for people to become more proactive?
Well, I think there's a lot of action going on. It was particularly fantastic for us to see over the weekend the coverage of End Plastic Pollution. Our campaign was just massive. I think there's many governments thinking about that. The problem is not always what is good for business is good for the environment and human development. And I think still are groups, economic groups and industrial groups that are just thinking about, we have to grow the plastic production. Plastic is even cheaper to produce today than it was 10 years ago. Well, that's absolutely ridiculous, because we cannot manage it. So we need to think about a new circular economy in which plastic is produced in a way that can be fully recycled or reused instead of just thrown away. 3 minutes after we had gotten into our hands something, we're throwing it to the garbage.
And to that point then, when it comes to the circular economy, because we know this is really a collaborative effort from the production point, also for end users, how would applying those principles make a big difference?
I think what is understood today is that as soon as the government puts some kind of a regulation that changes the game, the industry adapts. We have just done a study that was very interesting about plastic bags, bans, or taxes, fees established to them to reduce the use of plastic bags in cities. Is in all the cases, the industry and the businesses really push back and say, this is a disaster, we're not going to be able to do it. As soon as it was done, everybody reaccommodated themselves and started doing business in a different way. Either they produce, bags that are recyclable, or bags that are compostable, or they are doing some other piece in the business, but they are not losing any money.
So just quickly then, we have about 25 seconds here. Where should the responsibility lie? You have these companies, you have governments, and you have end users. Where should the responsibility lie?
I think there's 3 pieces here. citizens have to consume less. No way out of that. Governments have to manage waste much better, especially in the countries where all the plastic is going into the ocean. And industries have to start taking responsibility to change the way that they do business, to do more of a, zero waste, circular economy kind of business. Otherwise, we are going to be drowned by plastics, I'm telling you.
Indeed. Thank you so much. So good to have you. Valeria Merino there of the Earth Day Network.